So Square Enix's latest financial report has come out, and there's a lot of misinformation around this, specifically due to their new strategy to aggressively pursue a multi-platform approach, including Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox, and PCs. Now, if you read the headlines, it would have you believe that PlayStation is the reason for it, and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth had failed. But there's a lot of context that's missing, at least from what I'm seeing. So we're going to talk about the facts. But before we do, if you guys could do me a huge favor, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and share the video to keep this community growing. Now let's talk about this financial report. Obviously a big one, and this covers the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2024. And the results are below what they had previously forecasted. But there's a lot of reasons for this, and we're going to explore that. But as a result of these shortcomings, the firm is set to implement a brand new strategy going forward, and they're hoping to achieve a stable profit generation in its digital entertainment segment by the year 2027. Now let's talk about the numbers. The net sales are up 3.8% year over year. Digital entertainment sales are up 2.6% year over year. The operating income is down 26.6% year over year, and the profit down 69.7% year over year. So Square Enix's digital entertainment sales were ever so slightly up. They're slightly up, and that's due to the HD games sub-segment. They said the solid performances of Final Fantasy XVI, Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster, Dragon Quest Monsters, The Dark Prince, and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth saw HD game sales increase to 636 million versus the 503 million the previous fiscal year. So if you're listening carefully, they're actually up in that segment. And it is due to those games that they listed. Now, mind you, a lot of people may argue, hey, Final Fantasy 16 and 7 Rebirth, you would hope so, right? That's two massive entries into the Final Fantasy series and big titles for Square Enix. Now, moving forward, which makes things get a lot interesting, the firm's MMO and games for smart devices / PC browser subsegment both declined year on year, 11% and 10% respectively, with the latter in particular seeing new releases underperforming and unable to compensate for weak performances from Square's back catalog. So remember, this is in regards to the MMO and games for smart devices / PC browser subsegment. This is not about the HD games. This is not about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and FF16 and the other titles that they've released. The operating losses across its digital entertainment segment were due to higher development costs, amortization, and advertising expenses, as well as higher content valuation losses versus the previous fiscal year. So the cost of creating these games obviously becoming more and more expensive is due to why we are seeing a difference as well. Square Enix also talks about its results for the year being largely below what it had previously forecasted. Now, this is an important part. I think a lot of people are overlooking this, is that the company had warned investors that its results for the year would be taking a hit due to the canceled projects. They canceled a lot of projects. If you remember, they took a $140 million hit on canceled games. That's a lot of money, especially for Square Enix. So this is something we got to keep in mind. This is also a part of the problem here. A lot of people pointing over to one situation being FF7 Rebirth on PS5 exclusively, and there's just so much more to the story. We got to really look and see the entire story and all the context. Now, let's talk about their new strategy. Their new strategy going forward, which is what people are taking out of context. As a result of their disappointing financial year, Square Enix will be implementing a new strategy going forward. The company's previous strategy included a target to rebuild its portfolio across both the HD games and smart device segments, streamline said portfolios, and expand its MMO business. But they feel that their journey to better profitability in HD game development has been incomplete, and that they launched many titles, but some failed to live up to profit expectations, especially outsourced titles and some AAA titles. No details here. The conjecture that comes in here is that, okay, could that be Rebirth? Could it not be Rebirth? And then we're talking about outsourced titles as well, which is not in-house. So it could be like Crisis Core Reunion, for example, that was outsourced for development. That wasn't made by their main studios. With that said, their new strategy is titled Square Enix Reboots and Awakens, and is a 3-year plan targeting long-term growth. The company wants to enhance its productivity and release titles more regularly by optimizing its development footprint. And this will involve revamping its organization, retiring its business unit-based organizational design. So they will be aggressively pursuing a multi-platform strategy that includes Nintendo platforms, PlayStation, Xbox, and PCs. And for its SD segments, Square said it'll be looking beyond iOS and Android and at PC launches as well. So the big statement here that is being twisted and turned, and whatever you want to call it, is that they're aggressively pursuing a multi-platform strategy that includes Nintendo platforms, PlayStation, Xbox and PCs. People are taking this as, oh, you're never going to see an exclusive title again to any platforms. And I just don't think that that's the truth. I think that, depending on the situation, they will approach it a certain way. Final Fantasy VII Remake series, the trilogy, obviously, based on the things we know, is that it's going to be a timed exclusive for PlayStation as well. But you got to remember that they approached Sony and they had a deal worked out, right? Whether it be with development, whether it be with marketing, these were things that they did. And we know this because this came from the developers themselves, and that goes for FF16 as well. And that's the strategy that they had with those releases. So I don't think that they took the losses they did specifically because of their PlayStation deal. That just sounds like we're overstretching the truth. We also have to remember there are titles that Sony doesn't sign exclusivity for. They don't try to get an exclusive deal for, that Square Enix and many other Japanese developers just choose to only put it on PlayStation and PC. They don't want to go to Xbox as they don't necessarily move units there. And we know that to be a case. That's a fact of the matter. As far as Nintendo platforms go, a lot of the times it's because the hardware is underpowered. But with Switch 2 coming, maybe that changes a lot. And maybe Square Enix can go ahead and port a lot of their games to that platform. See Remake there. We could see Final Fantasy 16 maybe one day. Who knows? Depending on how powerful Switch 2 is and what they can do with the hardware. But the thing is, at the end of the day, it's not about PlayStation doing this to Square Enix or the cause being those exclusive deals such as 16 and Rebirth causing all of this. There's a lot more to it. You got to remember they canceled a lot of projects, number one. They also had a lot of failed games as well, new IP that they brought out and existing IP that they brought out that just didn't move the units that they expected. So there are other aspects as well as the MMO segment, right? And the mobile segment that also didn't perform to their liking. So there's one thing I can take away from this is I can see Square Enix go forward with a multi-platform structure. But I don't think that necessarily means we will not see timed exclusives anymore, because a lot of times those timed exclusives are quite beneficial for them too if it alleviates a lot of the marketing, if it alleviates some development cost, if they also get paid for the expected units that would be sold on competing platforms. So there's a lot of different ways to look at this. And on top of that, they can still release on PC after and all these other platforms. They are timed exclusive deals. They're not saying you can never drop your game on Xbox or wherever else. Like FF7 Rebirth was a 3-month timed exclusive. So whenever Square Enix is ready to drop Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on PC, they can go ahead and do that. There's nothing holding them back. So I think there's a lot of aspects to this, and to just kind of narrow it down and hold it down to like, oh, FF7 Rebirth was exclusive, that's why Square Enix lost all this money, is just a lie. It's not an accurate statement at all. There's just so many aspects. And I think when you look at it, the entire picture, if you're an intelligent person and you look at the entire picture, you don't walk away saying something like that. You just know the facts, and the truth being that there are a lot of shortcomings with Square's previous plan. But I hope for their case that this new strategy going forward helps them become far more profitable and allows them to stay around a lot longer, because I'd like to keep playing Final Fantasy. That would be very important to me, at least. Let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments. As always, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. If you did not enjoy the video, hit the dislike button. Subscribe if you're new, and share the video to keep this community growing. I thank you all for watching. Take care.